So companies that truly win and continue to succeed are companies that, one, stay curious, right? And I think it's a top-down thing. So from your role as a CS leader to the CEO to everybody in higher position down is just consistently being curious about how you can solve problems better for your customers and how you can better support them. And most importantly, always closing that loop, right? So listening to customers, staying curious, asking those questions, and then going back to customers by saying, we rolled this feature out for you, or we're not going to, and here's X, Y, or Z. I think that's what's most important, which is staying curious, always closing the loop as you continue to scale, which is going to force you to be spending a lot more time with customers, being in front of them, and always asking the questions, right? Versus just being complicit with, we have a good product, we're going to be okay.
Welcome to another episode of Hold the Churn, the show where we go behind the scenes with the leaders shaping how companies retain, grow, and build real relationships with customers as they scale. I'm Chandrika, co-founder of Quivly, the most powerful customer intelligence platform for post-sales teams. At Quivly, we help companies truly know their customers so they can grow those relationships intentionally over time. Today, we're joined by Elias Kokaly, the VP of Customer Success at DataGrail, where he leads customer success in one of the most trust-critical spaces in SaaS, data privacy. Elias has built and scaled CS teams across complex, high-stakes environments and brings a deeply thoughtful perspective on what it means to maintain intimacy with customers even as companies grow quickly. Elias, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you inviting me to the show.
So let's start with your journey, Elias. Tell us a little bit about how your path to DataGrail has been.
Awesome. So I spent the past 8 years in the crypto blockchain space, starting in the compliance investigation kind of roles, and then moving over to customer success. And I love telling this story because it impacted how I started thinking about building customer success teams and, how we operationalize supporting customers in the spaces that I've worked on, which is I was SME operating in a compliance space. Then I moved over to TRM Labs, which was a vendor supporting compliance and investigators both in the private sector as well as the public sector. And being a former user of a product like TRM Labs really impacted me in the sense of driving impact to our customers when I was there, because I really understood their use cases, I understood their pain points, and I was able to operate from a point of empathy because I really understood, where they're coming from. So fast forward, I spent 4.5 years there. I joined DataGrail, and at DataGrail, it's also, we're operating in a very regulated environment. And, the space is in a way that's complex. There's a lot of nuance there. And there's a level of understanding and knowledge that customers are seeking from us in our role as their customer success managers and as our advisors. So that's one of the things that after I joined here, I started to inject, which is subject matter expertise within our team to ensure that, we understand the pain points our customers are dealing with, to understand, where they're coming from, and to really help expedite and drive further impact to the way that they're using our products and services. My background is untraditional, I would say, in regards to coming into a CS role. I've been here now, so it's been almost 8 months where I've been at DataGrail. Yeah, it's been good.
Amazing. Elias, you've worked across compliance, highly regulated environments, and in industries that are deeply rooted in trust. How does that impact the way you think about customer relationships, if it does?
Yeah, such a great question, which is when it comes to relationships, especially in the role that I operate in, it's not about how reactive or the level of responsiveness that you have with a customer. I think about it from a three different perspectives, which is, do you really understand the customer? Do you understand the pain points that they have, the ecosystem in which they're operating and the pressures that they might have from a regulatory perspective or even from an internal pressures that they might be facing. So that's one. Two, do you understand how you're able to help them understand the value that they're getting and then helping them measure that value from the products and services that you're getting? And then ultimately, and then third and most important thing is you're a partner and a trusted advisor. You're not just a vendor that they're using. And I think that's a really important thing, which is, making sure customers understand that you're an extension of their team and you create these different mechanisms and workflows where they can reach you and then you're able to support them in that way. At the end of the day, that is what's most important. It's not about the number of touch points that you have, but are you actually able to drive impact to that customer relationship? Are you helping customers realize that value? And are they successful because they're leveraging your tools and services? So these are the three things in how I think about it. And I think something that I take into consideration, especially as we continue to scale.
Super interesting. Yes, you joined DataGrail at a time when scale was very real. DataGrail has a lot of customers, more complexities as the customers grow, and more expectations. Before we get into specifics and metrics, how do you think about what a deep customer relationship, a good customer relationship looks like? And yeah, just defining what good looks like for your team.
Yeah. Um, So a deep customer relationship, it's not just saying customer, they love us, they want to come to our events and, they're responsive to all our questions. A deep customer relationship is a collaborative relationship where the customer is actually collaborating with us because they're treating us as their, direct partner. A customer that is actually sharing, some of the pain points that they're dealing with, pressures that they're under, coming to us asking for guidance and support in regards to how to approach certain problems and that they're dealing with, and looking for guidance in regards to how to solve some of these issues. And they see us ultimately as a trusted advisor. You're probably gonna hear me say this word way too many times on this pod today, but that is something I truly believe in, which is, it's you don't automatically become a trusted advisor, but having ultimately seeking that out and trying to be that, I think it's really, really important, and ultimately really helps drive that deep relationship with customers and for them to trust you and come to you when they need you.
How do you and your team become the trusted strategic advisors for your team? If you can share some concrete examples of what you've done, what's worked with some of the customers where you've had the best relationships. What's that journey look like?
Yeah. It's a couple of things. I don't think it's like one thing that you have to check the box on, right? What I was talking to earlier, I think is really important, which is having subject matter expertise on your team. That's really important because it helps build empathy in the sense of somebody in our role dealing with a customer. You truly understand the pain points that they are dealing with and kind of like where they're coming from. So it helps you kind of understand that, and then it enables you to like easily resonate with the customer. But I think more importantly, it's meeting the customer where they're at and trying to understand what they're actually trying to achieve, and then helping them and guiding them to achieving those goals. Usually, that helps helps build that relationship because you're starting with the customer, you're aligning on what their goals are, and then you're helping them get to that level. Having that SME experience obviously is really important. It's more important operationally how you put that into place, which is you know getting with the customer, understanding what their priorities are, understanding what they're trying to achieve, and aligning with them on a goal and on a plan to help get them there. And once you do that, and you help the customers realize their value, then, that really automatically helps build that trust and that relationship because now they see you as that partner that,
Yeah. Well, as you grow, Elias, obviously the relationships start to become a little bit, detached from the founders, let's say. Intimacy is sort of default early on with customers. Founders are talking to customers constantly, regularly. But as companies grow, you tend to lose some of that. What's, in your opinion, one of the things that's really worth fighting for to keep, continuing that in some ways? I'll give you an example. One of our customers told me that they chose us because they got the CEO as their CSM. That was their big reason. They wanted to work with us because they liked the fact that we were super quick in the way we responded to their emails, questions, Slack messages, and just how on top of everything we were. So, what are some of those things for you all at DataGrail that has sort of stayed in the culture even as you've scaled?
I love it. That's such a good question. And yeah, like the best way to answer this is, and you probably, as a founder yourself, I think this probably resonate, which is, early on, especially before the company starts to go through, through real scale, you're getting that unfiltered proximity to a customer, right? You're hearing the raw truth constantly, the good, the bad. You're seeing the emotions, you're seeing the frustrations, you understand everything that a customer is being blocked on, and you just have direct visibility um, that we all have, right? As early companies trying to build a customer base and really to grow. As you start to scale, that kind of feedback starts getting filtered through multiple layers, right? And you are more likely to hear about what customers want versus how they feel and where they're at. And obviously, that's like a big miss. So, what I have seen, and I think that's really important, is founders. And I think it's a top-down approach, and CEOs, they need to be they need to continue being curious and have a level of urgency on really building and driving impact to, whatever the customer needs are. Because ultimately you're building to solve pain points that your customer base is dealing with, no matter what space or what product that you are building. So staying curious and having a level of urgency to solve issues that your customers are trying to solve, that's really, really important. And then more importantly is, as a CEO specifically, and, leadership, being involved with customers, right? Like, and that's something that I believe in, is like joining calls, meeting with customers, having one-on-ones, and finding every opportunity possible to have those direct interactions is really critical, because it enables you to have the raw, unfiltered feedback that you'll never get through multiple layers.
That's such a good distinction in terms of how customers feel versus what they want, and leaders continuing to have a pulse on how customers feel, not just what they want from the product, from the relationship with the team. I'm curious, how do you enable the rest of your leadership team to have that pulse on how customers truly feel in terms of actual metrics, numbers that you share with the rest of the leadership team to bring attention to things that you feel deserve that attention?
Yeah. Metrics are great, dashboards are great, but at the end of the day, you need to have, or you need to see ultimately the voice of the customer in its raw form, which is direct. So the only way to do that is by making sure we're spending time with customers, right? If you're the chief customer officer, if you're the CEO, chief product officer, everybody, at the end of the day, as a company, especially in the SaaS world, you're building for the customers, right? And you want to make sure customers are successful. So it's as simple as that. Meeting with customers. It doesn't mean if they're scale, or you're too big. That there's no such thing. You should always be meeting with customers, trying to understand what are the pain points are, and how you can better support them. Because at the end of the day, and again, you probably could speak better to this as a founder. The journey evolves, right? What you thought you were building and what the pain points that your customers were dealing with are changing over time, right? And it's much harder for you to continue to build and solve for those real needs that customers are seeking by just relying on filtered feedback through multiple layers. And I think that's like a really important factor that you need to have. So leaders across orgs, I think, should be spending time with their customers and ultimately creating those opportunities if they don't exist to be able to get that feedback.
Realistically, yes, obviously, customers also have a ton of other priorities that they're working on. How do you earn the right to have these conversations on a somewhat regular basis with them and really understand what's going on their side? And how do you get them to spend this time with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, we are all, at the end of the day, also customers of a bunch of other tools as well, right? I know that, in my role, uh, I'm trying to engage customers and whatever. At the same time, I'm also a customer of other vendors where they're trying to engage me. And the way I think about it, even, as a, on a personal level, like why would I get on a call with a vendor? I ask my question like, what's the value add here and what's important here? And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is, part of building a deep relationship is building a collaborative relationship and building something where you're actually adding value by one, understanding the customer, understanding your ecosystem, understanding all their pain points, and making sure that, you're not just having touch points just to have touch points, right? But having value at touch points where you're actually driving value and impact. If that exists, then it should never be hard to get on a call with a customer and to get them to answer your email or answer your call and have those conversations. So to simplify this, it's truly going back to what I was saying earlier, which is having that deep relationship by having a great understanding of who your customers are and making sure that you're aligning to their outcomes and the goals that they're trying to achieve and helping them achieve those. If you have all that in play, then it should be a very easy process. If the relationship feels very transactional, if the customer is less likely to get on a call, if the customer is not sharing as much information and feedback and flagging issues when now it's urgent, then, that's just red flags everywhere. And it's a likely sign of somebody that's looking to churn versus somebody that, is going to be around much longer.
Tactically speaking, how do you continue to maintain this relationship? Is it mostly through QBRs, check-ins? Do you go visit customers in person? Are there parts of your motion that are critical based on the culture you've developed and the things you've seen work with other customers in the past?
Yeah. Um, I think each organization is different. I also don't think it's a CS playbook or it's a CS driven thing. It's a company, right? Either as an organization, you're customer obsessed or you're not, right? And it's a top down from the CEO down in regards to how we engage with customers, how we treat them, how often we're in front of customers, and the level of engagement that we have. So definitely, like, we have our quarterly business reviews with customers, we have our regular check-ins with customers. We deploy all those. We also have, in-person check-ins, right? Like, we try to be intentional about spending time with customers in their offices and getting that in-person touch. We host a lot of dinners for our customers around certain launches or certain events. And that's just a great touch point to get in front of customers. So all that stuff that you would typically see, I think usually the miss here from an organization, it's a much harder thing to achieve when this is CS driven versus a company initiative. When it's a company initiative, then you have the buy-in from all the other leaders and it just makes it a much easier thing to accomplish and for it to be successful. When it's just a CS initiative that a CS leader is trying to push, it makes it a lot harder because, you don't have the buy-in from other leaders. And ultimately, if I'm meeting in person, it would be great to have our CEO, right? Or have our chief product officer or, our engineering leaders to hear directly from customers. So having that level of buy-in, I think is really important.
Makes sense. Our jobs would be a lot easier if there was a one size fits all or like a playbook that we could all use and just, get the secret sauce, if you will. Doesn't exist. Yeah. Yes, there's this inherent tension between efficiency and intimacy or depth of customer relationship. How would you say you balance that? What's worked for you and what are mistakes you've made along the way?
That's a great question. This is not just like me. I think like any other organization, when you start scaling, right, you start thinking about how can we be more efficient? How can we save our time? How can we, make sure that we're more impactful with, less headcount, for an example, or less tooling, or with less time spent with customers, or whatever it is. At the end of the day, you start thinking about all these different metrics, and you just focus more on the efficiency piece. And, my thought process on this is you standardize the process, right? But you continue to personalize the experience for customers. And that's like the most important thing. It doesn't matter if you have 10 customers or 500 customers, that personalization is really important. And the way you achieve that is by truly understanding who your customer is, what are they trying to achieve, and making sure that you're sending them on a path of success and aligning with them on that pathway, and then ultimately helping them realize that value. That level of personalization is what's so important here. And obviously it helps drive empathy because, it forces you to really sit down and think about the customer and what their needs are and how you can help them get there. Now, from an operational standpoint, that's where the efficiency comes into play, which is how do you engage with the customer? How often you're talking to them? What tools are you using and all these things, which, you can be a lot more efficient on, you can be more efficient on. I think what most companies miss is that personalization, right? You're trying to operationalize, you know, both the systems piece, but also, the way you engage with customers at a human level. And I think that's the part that you got to keep as you continue to scale.
Super important. I agree.
Yeah.
Could not plus one more. On the customer side, they are also going through a change, right? They are also growing,
Yes.
they're also evolving as an organization. How do you avoid becoming complacent about a customer relationship that's been around for a while and continuing to keep up with, how the organization and their needs are changing on the customer side?
Yeah. Uh, usually those are the customers that you have to worry about because you're like, oh, they're complacent, or you're being complacent about them in the sense of, they've been around, they're happy, and, there's no risk there. One, I don't think that's true. Two, I think every customer is earned year over year. You have to earn the relationship. You have to kind of earn that relationship of them working with you, right? And to do that, it's like constantly putting in the right mechanisms to align on priorities, align on what their goals are, and helping them achieve those goals, right? But if you're not, and you're just saying, "Hey, this customer's happy," I don't think that that's going to be a working playbook for you. I think the other thing that I just also believe in, there's a term that gets thrown out there, which is like post sale, right? And it's like technically, I'm the CS leader, so I'm operating in like in a post sale function. And I don't think that's necessarily true because you're always selling in the sense of, you're always trying to drive value to customers. You're always making sure that they understand and see the value that they're getting from the tool and that, they renew with you. That renewal itself is ultimately a sale, right? Because they see the value, they understand it, and therefore they're going to renew with you. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's just something that, I think is really important to just talk about the distinction there.
This resonates so much with me. And I have to admit, I am also guilty of using the term post sales, primarily
Yeah,
because it's just commonly understood. There's a sort of common
correct.
mental model around what post sales is in the industry. But if we were to get an opportunity to reframe that, Elias, and start from scratch and coin a new term to define what happens with customers after they're in the door once they have decided to work with you, how would you like to phrase this part of the revenue life cycle?
You're giving me the magic wand.
Yeah.
um, if I had to, I'd probably call it customer outcomes, right? Customers signed with you because they are trying to achieve a specific outcome. And our job is to help them achieve that outcome. They achieve the outcome, they will be happy. And if they're happy, they're likely to renew with you, right? Obviously, there's a lot of nuance in there, but at the end of the day, it's outcomes, right? What is the customer trying to achieve by leveraging your solution, and are you able to help them realize that value? If you do, then they're likely to renew with you. It's just as simple as that.
I love that. I love customer outcomes. I've also heard customer growth being thrown around as another phrase to describe what CS teams, customer success teams should be doing. When you think about the CS team at DataGrail, what do you think is the top responsibility if you were to really force rank, all the things that they do, whether it's growing, expanding existing customers, retaining existing customers? And the reason I'm asking this is CS has unfortunately become a lot of the catch-all for all customer needs in a lot of organizations. I've seen and spoken to a bunch of CS leaders who are really trying to figure out like what is the one thing that they and their team are uniquely positioned to do that no one else in the organization can really help with, that they should be owning going forward.
Yeah. Where when I was at TRM and here at DataGrail, the number one thing that I'm focused on is adoption, making sure customers are adopting our product. At the end of the day, customers, they buy our solution and they should be using and getting value from what they're paying us for. If not, then that's a high indicator of potential churn or a contraction, right? So from our side, we are very focused on customer adoption. Have they deployed the product? Are they realizing the value? Are they generating outcomes using our products and services? That is our main focus, and ultimately, that's why what I was talking about earlier. We've been trying to inject subject matter expertise onto the team to make sure that we fully understand our users' uh, pain points, what they're trying to achieve, but ultimately help drive that impact even faster, get customers to value realization much faster. So I would, focus on customer adoption if that was the only thing.
Is adoption or value realization a metric that you and your team track actively and set as a goal for yourselves quarter over quarter?
Yeah, so it is a metric that we track, which is, we track if customers have been fully onboarded or if customers have realized the first value, because that is an important part of that customer or the user experience, right? You don't want to buy a tool and not be able to use it for 9 months, right? So being able to quickly help customers realize that value is really, really important as part of that customer life cycle journey. And it's a metric that, we look at as a business because we want to make sure that one, we're helping customers achieve it, but two, from an operation standpoint, how can we improve that experience, right? How can we make it faster? What can we do from a product perspective or a process perspective to make that time to value even shorter, right? So that's obviously helpful for us from an operational standpoint as well. So I would say,
Let's switch gears to the team that you build and people you hire. What traits do you look for? So, as you're growing your team and bringing on new people, Elias, what traits do you look for in someone you're bringing on for your customer success team, who are people who are generally great at building durable relationships?
yeah. I would probably say three things. Yeah, the empathy piece. That is so important. If you don't really understand your end users, you don't really care to understand your end users, then it just makes it very hard to operate in this type of role. I think structures, again, is also really important. Having the ability to structure the process and help drive customers toward value realization is really important. So being very structured, being able to manage that relationship in an effective way and drive customers towards the goals that you set with them, again, is really important. And then last thing is courage. Courage in the sense of, I think a really good CS manager or leader or anybody operating in CS or customer facing role, it's really important to be able to have the hard conversations with customers and to be honest. And sometimes it's very difficult, but you have to have it. And being able to have those conversations with customers, I think sets that kind of tone for in regards to where the relationship is heading and really kind of stepping into that role as a partner and as a trusted advisor because it shows that you care and you're trying to make sure that you're setting the right foundation in regards to where you're trying to take this relationship and ensure customers are successful. So empathy, structure, courage are really important skill sets in not just like roles I hire, but in any customer facing role, for any operator.
And how do you test for these in your interviews or conversations with people you're trying to bring on?
Yeah. Obviously, experience talking to people, trying to understand, the level of experience that they've had in customer facing environments, and also kind of trying to understand and see if they had, the bad customer experiences and how they handled those, right? And the difficult customers and how they were able to kind of turn the stage around and set that customer to the right direction. And how they were able to kind of effectively manage, different relationships, different personalities, being able to kind of tackle that in a meaningful way. So I think it's just, your typical interview process. I think it's just asking the right questions, trying to dig into what kind of experience somebody had, negative or positive. Um, um, challenging, for an example, also, and just how they were able to handle that and kind of set it to the right direction.
Speaking of teams and people, I often think of CS as part of this three-legged stool, product, CS, sales, right? Where all three teams are really responsible for making sure that the product is delivering value, the customer is happy, and they are actually able to solve the problems that originally came to you for. How do you align with these other teams that are super critical for you to continue growing that relationship and ensure that they understand as much as you do that understanding customer needs and continuing to grow that relationship is everyone's responsibility?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's really simple. It's ultimately connecting customer outcomes directly to every function, right? So to achieve that, I think you just need to make sure that the customer voice is consistently being heard and shared across your organizations. And there's obviously a bunch of ways in which you can do it. One of the ways that we do it here is at all hands, right? We talk about, customer wins, and those wins, we tie them back to, a specific feature that was rolled out and a specific relationship that was maintained, and the way support went out of their way and supported the customer that led to them taking certain action, right? So one, sharing that on a consistent basis, which we do on every all hand, and then two, just directly connecting that to all the different functions that helped support that kind of win ultimately helps, right? But you just got to do that consistently. That's the way we do it here. There's a bunch of ways you can do it, but making sure ultimately that that voice, customer voice, is heard on a consistent basis really matters and ensures that everybody is continually aligned to the mission and why we're here, and what we're building, and what we're trying to achieve.
It reminds me of this tradition we used to have in my previous organization, Plaid, where we would bring a customer to talk to the entire organization every couple of all hands or every few meetings that there was a company-wide or org-wide meeting. A customer would come and actually tell us like what they're using the product for, how impactful the product's been for them, and how they plan to continue building alongside or inform our roadmap. So
I love
I think
that.
that's super
Yeah,
powerful.
we just had a customer join our most recent all hands, right?
Oh, really?
So which is, I think is great. Like I know honestly, like my personal belief on this is there's not you can't do that enough, right? And the more you do it, the better. I think go to market folks, we take that for granted because we're always engaging with customers and we forget about, engineering and product and data science where they typically are not as, they're not customer facing and, they don't see that as much. So providing as much of that as possible is just, the more the merrier. And it helps kind of ensure everybody's aligned to all the work that we're doing and aligned to the greater mission of what the company is and what we're trying to achieve. So,
That is so true. Yeah.
yeah,
There's nothing better than everyone in the organization hearing the same things from the customers rather than some of this information being passed on to them through a game of telephone of sorts.
unfiltered feedback.
Yep. Well, time for some reflection, Elias. So,
Love it.
it's been 8 months since you joined DataGrail. What's been one thing that you've changed your mind on?
I wouldn't say necessarily change my mind. If anything, I would say reinforce something that I strongly believed in, which is
Mm.
in regulated environments. Which I come from a very regulated environment in the AML financial crime space to now here in data privacy. Um, that customers do ultimately want support and they don't want just yes, they want expertise and they want that subject matter expertise. And it's something that I've deployed in my prior firm and something that we've deployed here. And, in the short time frame that I've been here, I've been able to see the impact that it has when it comes to kind of the confidence in the relationship the customer has because, there's a level of empathy, there's a level of experience and trust advisory efforts that are happening, right? It's you're no longer just telling the customer, hey, here's how the product works. It's like, hey, here's how it works, and here's how you probably should go about deploying it because of X, Y, and Z, right? So you're providing a level of guidance and expertise that helps kind of one create a higher confidence in that working relationship, but enables you to drive bigger impact. So I think that's just been reinforced where, in regulated environments, there's just so much nuance. There's a lot of pressure on customers to make sure that they are leveraging tools in the right way and having the right expertise when it comes to their vendors and the support that they get is really, really, really important.
Super helpful. Elias, we're coming to a close, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to ask you one or two more questions. So,
Let's do it.
there's a bunch of CS leaders who are listening to this right now, and future CS leaders who want to know what's the one thing that you recommend they all do. If you had a mic in a room full of all the CS leaders in the world possible, what would you say in 1 minute that, would make an impact?
Hmm. Anything?
Anything.
I think we'll just focus on the scale aspect and just growing your team, right? And I think you as a founder, I think this will resonate. I think as companies continue to scale and kind of grow, sometimes they forget about their end users and their customer, and which is something I was alluding to earlier. And I think uh, those that win, so companies that truly win and continue to succeed, are companies that one stay curious, right? And I think it's a top-down thing. So from your role as a CS leader to the CEO to everybody in higher position down is just consistently being curious about how you can solve problems better for your customers and how you can better support them. And most importantly, always closing that loop, right? So listening to customers, staying curious, asking those questions, and then going back to customers by saying, you know, we rolled this feature out for you, or we're not going to, and here's X, Y, or Z. I think that's what's most important, which is staying curious, always closing the loop as you continue to scale, which is going to force you to be spending a lot more time with customers, being in front of them, and always asking the questions, right? Versus just being complicit with, we have a good product. We're going to be okay. I think it forces you to be, ultimately a better company, right? Because you're always thinking about how you can improve and how you can be better, uh, you know, partner for your customer base.
Stay curious. That's going to be
Stay
the title of this
curious.
episode.
I love it. Here's your clickbait.
Yeah, curious.
um,
Awesome. Well, Elias, is there anything you wish we had covered in this conversation that we haven't gotten to yet?
we do, which is totally fine. I know this can get clipped, but we didn't talk about AI. But I think AI obviously is transformative in our space and how we leverage it. Which is, I think every organization, not just CS, is thinking about how they can leverage AI and how they can use it. So that's probably I think something or a topic that's top of mind for a lot of people, which is like how you're deploying it and how you're using it. Other than that,
Let's
um,
talk about your AI strategy. How are you thinking about it, and what do you recommend others take into consideration as they are trying to think about what their AI strategy for CS should be?
ooh, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I had AI strategy, but I can give you some of my thought process. I probably should
Yeah.
clip that piece out though. So I'll tell you my thinking on it, which is I think AI is very transformative in regards to the way it can be deployed and some of the workloads it can help operationalize and help drive further value and efficiency. Almost every tool that you use now has a level of AI integrated into the way it works and it operates where, it's part of like the a core foundational way the product operates and works, right? Versus, when it first started, it's like you're using all these different tools where you're actually prompting and asking questions. Right now, a lot of these tools, it's their AI is built at its core, their agentic first tools and services. I think, a lot of companies are trying to really transform how they operate, especially traditional SaaS organizations where they're trying to really transform and become AI native, which I think is really important. I think there's a lot of tools out there that are super impactful and helpful in regards to how we operate and how we work. I think as CS leaders that, are not leveraging tools today, you should. And I think what's probably most important is just building capacity across your teams to be able to tinker around and leverage different tools to see what could work, what could what might be interesting. Because there's a lot of like your typical workflows that you can help solve for. But if you think you give your teams the opportunity to like really think outside the box, I think that could help generate a lot of creative ideas in ways you can leverage AI. And the second thing I would say is, with AI and a lot of these tools, I think if it's kind of the outcome here is you're going to get a lot of data, which is really great, right? It gives you a lot of data, a lot of signals. But I think the most important thing here is making sure that, you really understand exactly the data versus just having that level of data, right? So I think it's a level of understanding that's really important, which is like, oh, great, I have all this data and all these signals, but what does that actually mean for me? And then how can I translate that into actually something that's actionable and impactful? So yeah, I would say that would be my recommendation is tinker around and build the capacity for your teams to do so, because I think it'll organically help generate a lot of creative ways in which you can be leveraging AI within your day-to-day workflows, and then just making sure that you understand the data and just not having it.
Amazing. Yes. Thanks
I
for
don't know
the
if that was a good answer, but hopefully it's good.
No, I think there's so many nuggets that we've gotten from this conversation, how it's important for leaders to stay close to customers, know how they feel versus what they want, and continuing to stay curious, closing the loop with customers. So, this has been an incredible conversation for me. Selfishly, I've learned a ton from you. Your perspective on customer intimacy, trust, and just growing alongside customers has been super helpful. So thank you so much for spending the time. For
I
listeners,
appreciate you having me.
uh, if they want to follow more of how you think about CS, how you think about customer relationships and scaling all of that, where can they find you? What's the best place they can get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. I'll share, my LinkedIn. You can share it at the bottom of this publication. People they can feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm always happy to have conversations and chat about all things CS. And if, I'm always happy to help if there was ways that I could. So never hesitate to reach out.
All right. That's it for this episode of Hold the Churn. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.